G'day gamers, and today I am going to do a walkthrough of a build for Pathfinder Kingmaker. Now the game's only just come out, I've got about 25 hours in it just playing around, and I liked the new Magus class. And so I'm going to show a Magus build, but being the character that I am, being the person that I am, I'm going to be playing the ranged Magus, or the Eldritch Archer, as it is. I'm going to point out some good and bad about the Magus class in general, some things to think about for some of the Magus archetypes, and then specific information about the Eldritch Archer. Difficulty is your choice. It's not really too much of a problem here. I am going to play this through and stream it on Twitch, so I'm going to go with normal mode. Creating a character, I still think there's not very many portraits here, and the ability, you do have the ability to load your own portrait in, but you must go to this particular folder and put in 2 copies of every file, or 3 I think it is copies of every file, so that you've got this size, and this size, which is just way too much work. I was going to grab some work from other games and try and put it in, but it seems like too much effort at the moment. So I'm going to pick the only vaguely Eldritch Archer looking character, which is this one. Even if I wasn't to be playing a human, I'd probably still pick this portrait, but I am going to pick a human. I think I've said this before in some other build videos. I don't understand why you pick your race and class first, or your race first. I should think picking your class first and then deciding which race you wanted would make more sense, because if you come into this game completely cold and you don't know what character you want to play, so you get to the next step here and you say, okay, what class do I want to do? It's not until you've picked a class that you can often work out what the best race might be to play that class. Which is probably why so many people just play human, because you just don't know any better. So I'll just pick human, or people pick something that's different, like half orc. And yeah, so the other thing that I could go on about is why there's only half orc and half elf, and there are not things like half gnomes and half dwarves, or even half halflings. I don't know what you would call that. Dark Sun had half dwarves in it, called moles. I think it would be interesting to see a tabletop or computer RPG that brings in some extra half races and different combinations. What happens when a halfling marries a gnome? Don't know. So anyway, going with a male, I'm going to try and make him look a little bit like this. So I know that if I want a slightly thinner body, and the face doesn't really matter for this. The hairstyle, I know if I go with hairstyle 7 here, it's pretty close to that sort of shaggy look. And beard 2 gives me that very light beard, and of course I have to go. This one here, which looks rather bluish to me, is actually the black hair. So pick that one, and that looks, quite a bit like this here, although it's hard to tell whether he's got the same earrings or not. And I'm going to keep him right-handed, just because I'm right-handed. Right, class progression. So, the Magus, or Magus, these are guys that they're combinations of wizards and warriors, basically, someone who can do a bit of both. If you think of the early D&D, if you know D&D from 30 years ago, if you think of the early D&D where you only had warrior, or fighter, cleric, thief, they weren't called rogues in those days, they were called thieves, and wizard, and then you had halflings, elves, and dwarves. Dwarves were plain fighters, halflings were fighter thieves, and elves were fighter wizards. That's sort of what the Magus is, a fighter wizard. But there's a really cool mechanic there, and that is once you get to 2nd level and get this skill here, get it to pop up, Spell Strike. With Spell Strike, you can cast the spell, but you cast it through your melee weapon, so that when you hit with the melee weapon, it does the damage. Now, it has to be a touch spell. So any spell that has a range of touch. And I'll go into that in a little bit when I pick spells for my Eldritch Archer. The difference between basically the normal Magus and the Eldritch Archer is the Eldritch Archer has a change to that so that it becomes ranged spell strike. So any spell that they cast which is a ranged spell, they can cast it by shooting their arrow or throwing their knife or whatever the ranged weapon is that they're using. And that is their way of casting that spell. So, for example, classic case, you want to cast a fireball. You don't just cast a fireball down range. What you do is you fire an arrow which is imbued with the fireball. When the arrow hits your target, they take damage from the arrow, and then the spell comes into play as well. So that's a cool mechanic. I don't really like the idea here of this Sword Saint. It is the... I can't think of the name of it. There's a similar sort of character that's been there for a little while in some other games where you are a weapon master type thing. Kenzai was in Baldur's Gate. The enhanced edition of Baldur's Gate, for example, was the Kenzai. So it's a samurai type character, and that's what this Sword Saint is supposed to be. But I never saw samurai as magical, so I don't really like that. And basically what you get is you get some more combat-oriented features that go along with your spell strike, rather than the more magical extra abilities that you get. You can go up in armor and things like that. And you get these bonus Magus feats. You get rid of some of that, and then instead, rather than being able to increase your armor, you get some special weapon feats for the critical perfection and perfect strike and things like that, to make you sort of more lethal with your weapon, less so with your magic. The Eldritch Scion is like the Sorcerer Magus, but to gain that sorceress ability, you actually have to pick a... where is it? You pick a bloodline, and there's multiple different bloodlines. Basically, all of the dragons. There's Fey bloodlines. There's elemental bloodlines. And those bloodlines give you some extra abilities and give you some extra feats that you can pick up that you normally wouldn't as a Magus. And that looks quite interesting. The problem with playing that character in this adventure is one of the NPCs in the adventure is an Eldritch Scion as well. If you don't want to double up, then don't play an Eldritch Scion. That's pretty straightforward. So, Eldritch Archer, as we said, spellcaster, uses a bow, and at second level can then start casting spells, distance spells, by shooting an arrow rather than by swinging their sword. So that's what we're going to go with. Ability points. So they recommend here dexterity and intelligence, and in this case I 100% agree. I don't think there's much point in putting significant values into anything else. My recommendation at this point, not having got all the way through the game, but played 25 hours, that's sort of starting the game 3 or 4 times with different characters and trying things out. I'm sort of recommending like a 16 in intelligence, gives you a good starting bonus to your intelligence. And then if I started at 16 in dex, because once you go past 16, the number of points it takes to increase that is significant. And stopping at 17 doesn't give you a major bonus at this point. So I'm going to stop at 16 there, and then I'm going to put a couple of points, or in fact 3 points here into strength. 2 reasons for that. 1, a little bit more carrying capacity, never goes astray. You're going to run out of carrying capacity unless you've got a character whose strength is like 17 or 18. You're not going to be able to carry absolutely everything that you find in the tutorial mission. You're going to dump stuff. My recommendation, dump all of the padded armor and then go for leather armor and studded leather first. It might seem, and get rid of the tower shield that you find. It might seem like it's more advantageous to drop the heavier armor first, but from a cost weight ratio, you only get 1 gold for padded armor when you sell it, and it weighs 10 pounds, yet you get 50 gold for a what was it? It was 37 gold for chainmail, and for, I can't think of the name of it, banded mail, I think it is. You get 50 gold for a suit of banded mail, and it weighs 45 pounds. So that 45 pounds saves you a lot, but for 40 pounds or 50 pounds worth of weight, when you drop 5 padded armors, you're only losing 5 gold, not 50 gold. So drop the lighter armor first, and you pick up plenty of those through the tutorial mission. So that's the way to do that. So the extra strength there will help, and also 13 is the minimum number that you need in a lot of cases to be able to get some of the feats that are based on strength. I'm not actually recommending taking any of them, but if you wanted to take some, they're there. The other 2 points I'm going to throw in Constitution, because a little bit of extra health doesn't hurt, so that gives me a total of 10 hit points. The allocating skills, you've got 5 points and you've got 5 here that are recommended, so unless you want to go and do something different, like, use magic devices or pick up something, lore in these, or pick trickery or something like that, I'm just picking the defaults here because I think they're actually quite good for this type of character. Oh, and I forgot to put my racial bonus. Where am I going to put it? Well, obviously I should be putting it either in Dex or Int. For me, I believe Dex at this point is the better option, because that's how to hit. And so we're going to be relying on that to hit with a lot of our spells as well. So we're going to want Dex to keep going up as much as possible. Any item you can find to raise Dex, get it. If you do happen to come across items that raise your Int, they might be useful. And having an Int only of 16 may limit us to only going up to level 6 spells, but we can throw a point now and again into intelligence to get it to, say, 18 or 19 as we go up. I haven't looked to see whether there is a limit on how many spell levels there are. Actually, it shows 6 down here. If I was to take some... actually, just do it this way. If I was to take this and go to intelligence, it goes to 18. So it looks like there's actually only 6 levels of Magus spell anyway. So there's no point in going... There may be, don't quote me on this, but there may be no point going any higher than 16, because if we go to 15, does that drop us... It doesn't visibly drop us back, but you might not be able to get level 6 spells with an intelligence of only 15. So that's my recommendations there. We'll move on. Now, I get 2 abilities here. They're recommending Point Blank Shot and Weapon Finesse. I got no problems with Point Blank Shot. You definitely want it. It makes it safe when someone attacks you up close. It still doesn't give you full benefits from being attacked up close. There is actually another ability that you have to grab. Let's see if I can find it. I think it's Precise Shot. Yes. So you can shoot or throw ranged weapons at an opponent engaged in melee without taking the standard -4 penalty on your attack roll. I believe that should probably read at an opponent while you are engaged in melee. I think the idea here is someone is trying to melee attack you, and you are trying to hit either them or someone else with your bow, with an arrow, or with any sort of ranged weapon, and if you don't have this ability, you will have a -4 penalty to your attack. So that is something to consider getting later on. I wouldn't get it right now, because you are, where possible, going to be at the back. You're going to have other people coming in. Now, I did say there was something I was going to mention on this. There is a sort of screw you feature in this game that I don't understand, and I've actually posted a bad review of the game on Steam because of this. I love the game, it's great, don't get me wrong, but whenever you go into combat, you have to draw your weapons. They're not already ready for you to start. And so what that means is, when you face off against a group, your bow isn't ready to go. You've got to take it off your back and grab an arrow and then shoot, which takes time. I'm not sure if technically, as far as the rules are concerned, you actually can do that and shoot. I don't know if you can draw your weapon and shoot in the same round, right? But what I see when I'm playing the game is my character has to take his bow off, get an arrow ready before he can shoot. Now, it seems like it's quicker to shoot with a crossbow, whether it's a light crossbow or a heavy crossbow, but you still got to get that crossbow off your back, get it up to your shoulder, and take the shot. That for a ranged character is a real screw you, because in every other game that you play, you've already got your bow ready to go. As soon as combat starts, if your initiative is high enough, you can have an arrow going straight away at your opponent, and that was one of the good advantages of playing a ranged character. You could get that shot off quickly to do that initial point of damage in a combat. That was why I've always felt ranged characters are good. But you don't have that in this. And as far as I can see, I thought there might be a skill that would allow you to quickly draw your weapons. And I've looked at the hidden skills, and I've looked through everything. I've even started up different character types to see if the skill is only available to certain characters. But there is no quick draw, or there is no skill. I've tried to read through pretty well every skill that I thought might have something to do with that, to see if there was anything that allows you to quickly draw your weapons and be ready for combat. So that's the one problem I have with this game, is that you don't start with your weapons drawn. You can't just immediately, as combat starts, shoot your bow. In fact, even as an Eldritch Archer, if I have a spell, this is going to be the problem with being an Eldritch Archer. If I was playing a normal Magus and I had a spell like Fireball, I would be able to cast that immediately at the start of combat, because I can't channel that through my sword because it's not a touch spell, it's a ranged spell. So the Magus will be able to stand there and at the start of combat will be able to immediately cast that Fireball, even though it'll take 3 seconds or whatever it is to cast. They'll be able to cast that Fireball and get it off. The Arcane Archer will not. The Eldritch Archer will not be able to fire that until they get their bow off their back, because any ranged spells they cast by shooting an arrow, not by just normal casting. So that's the disadvantage you're going to have as an Eldritch Archer, unless this game finds a way to fix it. I don't agree with this mechanic. I think the idea of you having to draw your weapons is a little bit silly. Every single combat in the tutorial mission, you're already facing opponents that have their weapons at hand. They've already got weapons drawn, and through the various parts of the game that I've played so far, a lot of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, you're up against opponents that if they have weapons, they've already got their weapons in their hand and they're ready to go. And if they've got a bow, they're shooting at you in the first round, straight up, while you're either charging towards them or fumbling your bow off your back. If you're wielding a melee weapon, you still have to draw it, but because you've got to move in most cases to get to your opponent, it's not so noticeable, because you're running towards your opponent and drawing your blade, or blades, plural, whatever you're doing. You're getting your sword out, you're grabbing your sword and board, whatever you're doing. It's only if the opponent sort of magically or whatever appears directly in front of you through an ambush or whatever that a melee character has to fumble for their weapons and potentially going to get hit while they're getting their weapons ready. But the archer, well, they could get hit by an opponent archer, is the thing as well. But an archer has always got to get their weapon out before they can get a shot off, and that's a problem. So what is my recommendation to sort of mitigate that? If you're playing and you want to spend the extra point, get improved initiative. Because if you can get yourself to the point where your initiative is higher than everyone else's, even if you do have to draw your weapon, hopefully you can do it quick enough that you can mitigate that problem as much as possible. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to get a shot off the first round, things like that, but that's the only thing I can think of at the moment, and that's what I'm going to take as this. So now let's have a look at the spells. Now I said I was going to talk a little bit about the different types of spells here, for the normal Magus and for the Eldritch Archer. So let's have a look here. This side over here is the spells for first level that I have to choose. This side here are the spells for 0th level, the cantrips. You can cast these you can cast one of these every single round of combat that you like. And some of them you can cast outside of combat as well, like light, for example. As a Magus, from 2nd level onwards, you can cast a spell along with your weapon attack every single round, so that as you go to swing your sword, you're casting a spell, and when your sword hits, they take damage from the sword and the spell at the same time, provided it is a touch spell. Here's your problem as a standard Magus. The only 0th level spell, the only cantrip that has a touch component is Touch of Fatigue. Now, while it's an okay spell, you've fatigued them, so that is going to drain their strength, slow them down. They're going to be less able to hit you, because it basically, when you get fatigued in the game, it slows you down, your movement speed, and it drops your attack bonuses, which when we get to the end of this, we'll see what all of my current bonuses are. So my bonus to hit, for example, will be +3, because that's my dex bonus, or +4, or whatever it is. That would be halved, I think, if I was fatigued. At least it gets dropped down by a certain amount. So by giving fatigue to your opponent, and it lasts for 1 round per level, so when you first get this ability to do this through your sword at level 2, you're going to fatigue your opponent for 2 rounds. That's going to help you, because whoever you're hitting with that, they're going to be less likely to be able to attack back. If they do try and hit you back, there's less chance they're going to hit. Things like that. But that's the only one you've got. As an Eldritch Archer, you can use Acid Splash, you can use Daze, you can use Ray of Frost, and you can use Disrupt Undead, and you can use Flare. You can use any of those on every single shot, and it's fairly easy to do. You just right-click on the spell on your action bar, and it'll pop out to the side of your character portrait, and you click on that, and then that spell will automatically be used every single round while you shoot your bow. You can do that as a normal mage as well, to turn on any spell as your automatic spell that you will use every single round. If you do it with a 1st or 2nd or whatever level spell, rather than with a cantrip, it will cast that spell first in combat until you can't cast that spell anymore. So if you're a sorcerer, and you set that to Magic Missile, and you can cast 2 1st level spells, it'll cast Magic Missile twice, and then it'll stop, because it can't do any more. So that's that. So the advantage of being the Eldritch Archer is that you've got much better cantrips, 1st level spells, that you can improve the performance. So basically every shot that I take, if I pick Acid Splash, I'm going to do whatever damage my bow does. So let's say it's a long bow, 1d8. I'm going to do an extra 1d3, as you can see there, of acid damage with that shot when that arrow hits. If the arrow misses, fine, it misses. But if it hits, it's going to do the normal arrow damage plus an extra 1d3 of acid damage on every shot. You don't have to do anything special. It just automatically happens as soon as you turn that feature on, until you decide to turn it off or pick a different spell. And so that's the really cool thing. That's what I'm liking about the Eldritch Archer build. Later on, as I go up through levels, I'll be able to use this feature with other spells. So when we talk about 1st level spells here, what spells would I pick? Well, unfortunately, there's only a few 1st level spells that are actually range based. Magic Missile is one. What I'm not sure on... Oh, okay. In other versions of D&D, Magic Missiles were specifically noted as never missing. This doesn't tell you that it never misses. It just says they dart forth from your fingertips and strike the target. It doesn't say that they can't miss. And so I'm unclear at the moment whether Magic Missile will work with this spell feature or not. I sort of hope it doesn't, because if it's guaranteed to hit, you can miss with your arrow. And if you miss with your arrow, that means your Magic Missile misses as well. And the fact that the Magic Missile does multiple missiles at higher levels, I'm unclear whether that works with the arrow mechanic or not. But there's actually very few spells here that are ranged spells. Snowball is one of them, so that's going to be the first spell that I take. And then Magic Missile is the only other one, so I'm going to take that as well. Now I have to learn my spells every day. I have to memorize them. I have to decide which ones I'm going to use. I really think that Snowball and Magic Missile are the two main ones that I'm probably going to be using most of the time. I'm going to take True Strike as well, just to give me the ability to hit better on my next round if I really, really want to. I don't see much use in taking Vanish or Stone Fist, because Stone Fist turns your hands to stone so they do more damage. I'm never going to be attacking barehanded. Shocking Grasp, is a good spell. It requires melee touch, but I'd rather not get that close. Shield, yes, is useful, but I don't think I'm going to take it straight up. I think the other spells I definitely want are Burning Hand and Colour Spray. Now these aren't. You might think that these are ranged spells, but they're not. The cone here starts at you and goes out 15 feet in a cone. Anything within that cone gets hit potentially by the spell. It would be interesting that you could then start the cone at an opponent by hitting them with an arrow and everyone behind them gets done, but it doesn't work that way. But because it is still a distance-based thing, it's a 15-foot cone, that is useful for me as an Eldritch Archer, because if someone does start to charge in and get close, I can use this potentially stopping them before they get too close. And the same with Colour Spray, because Colour Spray will actually do things like blind or stun or knock them prone. So again, trying to keep them away from me. The other spell that I'm going to take is the only other ranged spell at first level, which, when you shoot it, creates a burst, a 10-foot burst, centered on the target that you do, blinding them, everyone in that area, same as the flare cantrip. So I'm going to definitely take that one. In fact, I probably should have taken that one up here earlier, but that's fine. I'm definitely going to take that. So that one is one that I probably will learn and use at range with my arrow, because it means I can either use flare here, but this one allows me to do flare against a group. So I can shoot one person and everyone around them will also get blinded. If I was playing a normal Magus, though, the touch spells, Burning Hand and Colour Spray are not touch, but Corrosive Touch and Shocking Grasp are the two that you will use all the time with your sword. You will, say, cast Corrosive Touch and then attack with you will see it. When you cast that spell, it will charge it up in your left hand, and then you'll see that you swing with your right at the opponent, and it'll spark off or splash off or whatever it does. So that will be good. So that is pretty much my build. This is the end result. Yeah, I get one melee attack at +1, one ranged attack at +4. My initiative is 8, because I have a dexterity bonus of 4 and a +4 from the improved initiative. So hopefully that's going to allow me to attack first as much as possible, and if that means that I can get my bow off my back quicker to attack, I will. The only other thing I'm going to say is, as I mentioned earlier, I really do think that it may be worthwhile to consider using crossbows with this build rather than short or long bows or composite bows, because it appears that the crossbows, at least from what I can see, you start the tutorial mission and you have Lindsay, the bard. She's using a short bow, a light crossbow. She's firing much quicker than you are with your longbow. And I've also tried with the heavy crossbow. I've given that to a companion as well, and they seem to be able to get off a shot quicker initially than I do as well. So I need to do a little bit more work on studying that to work out if that's really the best way to go. But this is my build of a Eldritch Archer ready to go. I'm actually going to start playing this on Twitch, streaming it, and I will be putting the videos up on YouTube as well for this. So keep an eye out for those. I probably will be playing other characters when I'm not streaming as well, just to have a bit of fun and get through the game a little bit more. But yeah, I'm liking, from what I've seen so far, I'm liking the Magus class quite well, and definitely very much liking the Eldritch Archer. Whether that changes over time and whether I do an update video on this, I don't know, but that's that. So thanks for joining me. Leave any likes and comments below about what you think of this build. It's not spectacular. We could have dropped, say, some wisdom and charisma to get a few more points if we were trying to min-max things, but I think it's a good starting build for an Eldritch Archer. You're not going to be in the front line, but you're going to be able to do some significant damage once you get to second level by being able to add your cantrips and other ranged attack spells to your bow attack. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.